Call the meeting to order the Frontier Regional School District School Committee at 6:02. And as we've been doing, I'm going to start the meeting with a review of our operational goals. The school committee's primary responsibility is to establish those purposes, programs, and procedures that will best produce the educational achievement needed by our students. The committee is charged with accomplishing this while also being responsible for wise management of resources available to the school district. The committee must fulfill these responsibilities by functioning primarily as a legislative body to formulate and adopt policy by selecting an executive officer, to implement policy, and by evaluating the results. It must carry out its functions openly while seeking the comments of the public, students, and staff in its decision-making processes. That's probably particularly helpful to keep in mind as we go through some of the things that are on the agenda today. I think the first thing happened.
Wait, so,
But we may not.
right, so Sasha's not here yet, so we're just gonna put a hold on that and see what happens there. Just for a few minutes.
No worries. I will take a motion to approve the minutes from November 12th.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Great. Motion passes. So we have a couple of reports that we move to the top of the list here. I think we'll start with Anna. Is that right? Yeah. Anna, you can go ahead and get the student council report.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'll start by saying that the students at Frontier Regional are finishing up the end of their first semester and getting ready to start classes in their second semester. I'll also say that winter sports are going well and that you can donate to support the boys and girls basketball teams. You can do this by reaching out to a basketball player to get their SNAP QR codes until January 13th. That said, the junior class officers are also selling concessions at basketball home games to fundraise for prom. Another thing that went well at Frontier is the Frontier Regional Holiday Concert and the importance of being earnest play. Speaking of the theater department, this year's musical will be Light in the Piazza. Students have already auditioned and practices will start soon. Furthermore, Student Council is raising money for the Massachusetts State Student Council Conference that is happening the first week of March. This conference helps us to further develop our leadership skills and connects us with student council members from around the state so we can bring back more ideas and ways to help build community at Frontier. We appreciate any and all donations, and you can go to the Frontier Regional Instagram, which posted a URL to that donation site. And lastly, Student Council is also participating in the Massachusetts Polar Plunge on Thursday, January 30th from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. to raise money for the Special Olympics. You can donate by going to another tiny URL link, tinyurl.com/FRSpolar, and it's open to the public, so anyone can join. Thank you.
Thank you.
And where's the Polar Plunge gonna be?
I believe that it's at Greenfield High School. I'm not quite sure. If you need more information, you can talk to Ms. Strelke.
All right, is it a tank or are you guys going into a pond? Because you don't really know, right?
It's like a it's about the size of a storage container or dumpster, and you don't have to fully go in. You can just participate by stepping in if you want.
Are you jumping in?
I will not be because
All right, thanks. I was just curious.
yeah. I know some students are excited about it though. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Georgia.
All right, so a few things. So a couple things I wanted to highlight. So currently, and we started this week, we're working, our 8th grade students are working with audit mediation. They're doing bystander training for them. This promotes leadership and positive connections, as well as heightening awareness of bystanders' power and providing guidance for how to interrupt harm and generate positive action. So I included a link in my report if you want to find out more about audit mediation. Yankee Candle just generously donated another $4,000 to our school, so we want to thank them for their continued support of our community. This Saturday, January 11th at 7 p.m. on our local PBS station, As Schools Match Wits, Frontier will take on West Springfield. So tune into that. To echo what Anna said, we are officially now doing the Light Piazza for our annual musical. And the dates for the musical are March 14th through 16th, and there will be 3 shows. 7 p.m. on the 14th and the 15th, and 2 p.m. on the 16th of March. And then once again this year, we're continuing to work with Project 351, which is a nonprofit organization that builds a movement of youth-led service by engaging an unsung hero from each of our state's 351 cities and towns. So we would like to congratulate, we've had 4 8th grade ambassadors who've been selected. So Aaliyah Harris-Flight, Eleanor Wade, Rylan Waskowitz, and Heng-Shi Yu. They're going to be participating in Project 351 this year. That's my report.
Shelley?
Okay, 36 warrants were reviewed and signed by Bob right this week. Paid since the last meeting, totaling $3,985,343.27. I sent you out the expense reports. I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. There's nothing major to report. There's no concerns at this time. I wanted to remind you, if you're looking at the school choice account, our out-of-district placement where it says non-public schools, that is significantly overdrawn. We do have a school choice student coming in that we're sending out of district, and we will recoup those funds. So we'll see that wash out by the end of the year. And then on the general fund, we have, I think it's about $2 million remaining to be spent before the end of the year. What I wanted to point out there is that that does include $350,000 for capital projects that we've already approved, work to be done, fire panel, and probably some for the building management system that we haven't started those yet. So the $2 million is not just operating expenses that are capital in there as well. I'm happy to take questions as you look through the report. There are some lines with overages, nothing major, and most of them we have talked about at higher meetings. But
so the question per se to your spreadsheet here, I don't know if it's more George or you, and I really can't recall. When a large gift gets donated like that from Yankee Candle, does it go into our operating budget?
it does not go into our operating budget. So the Yankee Candle donation currently goes into the principal student activity revolving fund, and it can be spent per George's discretion on student needs. So for building needs, we've done a variety of things with it over the years. We put it in a bubbler.
We've got water fountain bubblers with it before. This year, I'm putting it towards, they're doing, the senior class is doing a trip to Boston, 1-day trip, so it's going to be going towards that.
Any other questions on budget? I think I saw anything. Any others? Nobody here for public comment?
Nobody cares.
That's not true. There've been a lot of people who have shown they care.
Today, thank you.
All right, is this back to you, Shelley, for the budget?
Oh, budget, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just say really briefly, we had the first budget subcommittee meeting. Budget work started back in probably October, late October, early November, collecting feedback from constituents in the building. And, the same spiel every January. We don't have the governor's numbers yet. We can't do the assessments. But what I will say is that for vital services, we're looking to be in a really positive space. We are in negotiations, so we've accounted for a placeholder of where the administration thinks we will land at the end of that process, which is one of the biggest fluctuating factors for us. So there's no significant asks this year as far as staffing or personnel changes or anything along those lines. So really preliminary. We hope to have some more information for you to look at more concretely in February. Did I miss anything, Bill?
No, I think that sums it up.
And school choice.
Do you want to do you want me to?
So just as a, every annually, we have to take a formal vote to be a school choice school. If you look at the packet with the class enrollment, in the past, you do the principal's discretion. The only class that looks really large is that 8th grade class, and that 8th grade class, as we do know, when it moves on to 9th grade, is when we get a drop off for those who attend tech and maybe choose other private school options or other schooling options. So that number does naturally reduce. There is room in probably every class for a couple of students, and then we will look at the number of students coming in 7th grade to get a healthy number. But
Yeah, so right now we've got 15 pending applications for 7th grade, 1 for 8th grade, 6 for 9th grade, 2 for 10th grade, 1 for 11th grade, and nothing right now for 12th grade. So, but yeah, so the numbers, we can afford to take all of those numbers, just to sort of echo what Darian said. Basically, we have right now the numbers in our 8th grade are a little bit high, but those tend to reduce usually between 25 and 30 students who go off to tech into other schools. So we're usually able to absorb all the kids that are coming into 9th grade.
And I think the other thing just to emphasize is that they did change the law a few years back that all elementary school choice students have to reapply to Frontier. We're a separate district, so we were messaging that out, but I think that 15 number might go up slightly given the number of choice students that are at the elementary school and their parents being that. So we review, and then eventually the secretary's call and say, if you really, so you don't miss your chance to get into the first draw. If it has to go to a draw, and then so forth. So they're just kind of seeing that a lot as you talk to people in the community. It is separate. It used to be automatic, but it's not. So we do need to a vote that will be a school choice school for next year, and I guess numbers at the principal's discretion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Just curious, have you seen any drop in that, maybe too soon with the change of the Pathways program, in that attrition from 8th grade to 9th grade? No. It's kind of.
We had about 27 students that left between 8th grade and 9th grade, so the numbers, it's been relatively substantial in the past few years.
Just curious. Andy?
It's you.
Okay. So you all would have received a letter from Department of Labor Service, CLS, earlier in the fall when we got certified for free cash, and I think we talked about it briefly that we did have an overage, so as we went over that 5% max that we can carry. When that happens, you have to return those funds to your member towns. When we do that, in the past, last year, we applied those funds to the FY25 budget because you don't have to refund in the current year, you can apply it to the next year. However, we do have the option to refund it this year, and given the amount and the percentages, it's $26,675.60 that we were over 5%. Darius and I are recommending that we reduce this year's assessments and return those funds to the town in the current year based on the cost share percentage. So for Conway, it's about 15%, Sunderland about 25%, I think Whately's around 10 or 11, and then Deerfield's almost 50% of that. So they're smaller amounts, Conway will see about 4,000, Whately 3,000, and so on from there. We could hold on to it until next year, but at this point, I think it's just good faith to give those funds back in the current year. So we do need a vote to return them to the FY25 assessment.
Second.
I'll just, before we make the vote, can I just mention that I think it's a good idea to bring that stuff up when we do all the budget presentations. I think that we're generally not as good at getting our own, like, it's not that we're asking stuff of you, but we're establishing a track record, we're trying to offset some of this stuff too. But it's just helpful to keep that in mind. It's easy to go, yeah, give you a little, and forget that we do that when we ask them for more.
Can I get the exact number for the
Yep.
minutes?
$26,675.60 was the overage.
All right, motion to take that off the assessments and seconded, can we take a vote, all in favor? All right, passes. Another donation?
Yes, so the first thing I want to comment on is the Yankee Candle donation acceptance will be on next month. We missed getting it on the agenda for this month, it had already posted. So you'll vote on that next month, even though we've already received it. The track donation is a $2,500 donation made to, I think, I don't remember if it was indoor track or if maybe it wasn't specified, but the donor did specify that it would be for track and field. So those funds will be applied. It was just a charitable donation that I'm not even going to recognize the name of the donor, and it came through Fidelity, so it came from a third party. We do need to accept that as well. So that'll go into the revolving fund for track and field, and then the coach or whoever's responsible for those funds.
So they can use it for materials.
Yep. Anything student related, athlete related.
And it's specific to boys?
That's,
or-
thank you, I was,
Did it say boys on
It
site?
Well, it says boys on the agenda, but I know a lot of the track equipment, maybe not the uniforms. but the equipment- the equipment is all kind of-
Could be shared, but depending on,
I was also wondering about whether or not.
I know the coaches do a lot in tandem, you know what I mean? So
And they probably only have one revolving fund.
I mean, even the shared transportation, go to the same piece.
So the donor did specify boys track and field team. We have one. Talked about. So I can send them a note and let them know the message says that they would take an acknowledgement letter, but no other type of recognition. So I will do my best. I have an address to reach out to them, and we can send them a notice letting them know that.
yeah, I'm wondering. Didn't have in mind, we have
That's
to,
kind of what I was
we
concerned
should
about.
make sure we, get this in order and get back in order.
I would feel much more comfortable accepting this
Right,
for
because
the
we need
track
to-
team without a specification on gender.
And I do, and what I also need to find out legally, so if someone
Yeah.
wanted to do a gender specific team, can they? You know, and when does it become out of whack?
Totally. Yep.
So let's get that answer.
Yeah, and it does say on here, so maybe we can ask the auditor as well, but the note, the check from Fidelity, there's a note on it, it says, the donor recommends the grant be used for the following purpose, which does not constitute a restriction.
And our policy does say, if we're back against what I just said, does say any donations given to the committee does have the ability to change how that money is spent and is in full control of that money. So, so within our own policy, we actually lose control of that money when it's donated. We try to respect issues of a donation, like so if someone gave to the drama department, we said, oh, we want to give it to boys basketball, you know what I mean? We wouldn't do that because we lose faith in the general public, but we do have the ability to make tweaks to it within our own policy. So,
That last
now I'm thinking on my feet here.
That last statement that Shelley read
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it seems like we could.
seems to be unrestricted.
And if we just made the motion to accept it as a donation to the track team, that goes on the record, right? Like, so instead of,
And we will then do a follow-up to that, and come report back, 'cause it's also, Brian, I think that's one of them.
Yeah, no, I think that seems reasonable.
yes.
Is there any past precedents, like have there been donations to the girls' basketball team and not the boys' basketball?
Well, this is where I wanna look into, because right now, the boys and girls basketball teams, I know because I got hit by a letter, is fundraising, both teams are fundraising for their teams, right? And they're doing straight up, please donate money, right? Instead of us selling you wrapping paper, we're asking for just give us the money. So what if I have a child in both, but let's say I have a child in one, and I said, hey, I'm gonna give, and I ran some money, I'm gonna give $1,000 to one program and not the other, and then one does very well in its fundraising versus the other. I want to find out, I'll share that back with all of you as well. It kind of fits to this.
Yeah.
Do you know what the basketball teams in particular are raising money for? I mean, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, are they expenses that we should be covering?
No,
Or
it's for stuff above and beyond. They got new uniforms earlier than what a normal rotation is. So it's a good question overall. So each athletic team is given an activities account amount of it's around $1,000 or whatnot. So anytime, well, as you can imagine, uniforms are very expensive. So they do fundraising stuff on top of that. You could save over multiple years and have more money to go toward uniforms, or you do fundraising, because most teams want things that are nicer. They want the shooting shirts they keep when the season's over. I know that the boys team, I think the girls team last year got bags. You know what I mean? So they use some other stuff that, I know field hockey, when they had a tournament game, they got a coach bus, but the school does not buy the coach buses. We pay for the do them up, the school bus. If they want to upgrade, they can use their own account money. So they can use that kind of thing for, so that's kind of where that kind of works on. And sometimes they do team dinners, they pay for team dinners. So a lot of times it's the parents giving the account money they'd be giving many times anyways. On a positive note, it evens out those students who can't afford those extra costs associated with the sport. It's coming from a general account rather than, everybody else got the shooting shirt, you did it because your family can't afford it.
So are we comfortable accepting this donation, giving the statement in here that says which does not constitute a restriction, and our policy that says that we can use for other purposes?
Yeah.
I'll move to accept. I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. You gonna do the DESI review?
The DESI review. So I did send out a frequently asked questions about district reviews, because it really, I thought, as I was putting together, like, what am I going to talk about here? It just kind of explains the whole process. So DESI chooses a few schools in the state each year to do a review. And basically they go in and they're going to examine student performance and outcomes, systems, policies, practices, including focusing on ways the district works to promote equity to all students. So we got chosen, and we kind of asked if there's any rhyme or reason to it, and there really wasn't an answer there. But basically, they're going to come out to visit in the first week in March. And right now we are doing the painstaking work of uploading just about everything that we have, from budgets. Shelley had to give me all the budgets from the last 3 years from all 5 schools, all the budget presentations, so that's just in the budget end. From the curriculum end, we're loading all our curriculum maps, assessments, handbooks, our strategic plan, our equity plan, our professional development plan. Every single thing that we load somewhere in our Google Docs is being uploaded to. They have a third-party agency that does it called AIR. So they don't even, DESI actually doesn't do the review, they have a third-party contractor that does it. And they're going to come in and look at everything and then spit out a report about areas of strength and weakness. It's kind of similar to our NEASC years and years ago. I would say, and Sarah, I'm looking over at you, feel free to jump in if I misspeak. And I read some of the reports of other districts. To be honest, not too impressed, but it's a lot of work for us to put together and And we'll be doing that. As part of that process, they are going to give you school committee members. And so that week, as that week draws closer, they're going to give me a schedule of when to fill the times. So we'll be getting your feedback on what you do and your roles and policy making and governance of the district as well.
So put them up at the hotel in Northampton or.
I do not, this is different than this. This one is paid for by the state, you know. They did Pioneer last year, in Pioneer Valley last year. They're also doing Greenfield at the same time. This year is kind of, they only do like a dozen state, and there's like 200 districts. So I don't know.
Franklin County 3 times in 2 years.
Yeah, I was like, when I heard that Greenfield at the same time, that's when I did ask, like, what is your choosing that? We're same size school in the same region. Don't you want to spread out? But yeah, I tried to say it funny too, but I actually, the funny thing I said is, I didn't reply to the initial email, and then he wrote back. I said, oh, I'm sorry I didn't reply. Did you move on to someone else? But he did think that was funny. But so, anyway, so there is going to be some work on your end. And then when they give us the full report, it is something that we will make public and I'll bring to the meeting and share with all of you. Some of it is like, tell us what time our watch says, you know, we can kind of know the things we're working on, and hopefully there won't be too many surprises. Okay. All right, any questions on it? We can kind of go through the questions of Q&A. I don't want to about Thank you.
Move right into graduation.
You bet. I brought Dr. Sarah
Big guns.
today. Sarah, do you want me to present?
Yes, I need to do that on the. I think you're all.
Okay.
Ballot question 2. All right, apologies in advance because some of these slides I'm going to go through very slowly because I need everyone to understand the full picture of all of this and the implications. And for those of you who are in the school districts, you're going to know a little bit more than the average audience member. So ballot question 2, as you know, was the question that asked the public, do you want to have MCAS be a graduation requirement? In speaking with many friends and family, as I'm sure anybody that's in education spoke with, they all asked my opinion. They all had a different interpretation of what it meant if they voted yes or no on the question. And I'd say maybe 1 in 20 was somewhat accurate in what their understanding of the question was and what it was going to do for education. So I'm not really sure what most people out there in Massachusetts thought they were voting on, but I'm going to try to break it down so that it's pretty clear on what they voted on and what we can and cannot do with that information. So we've gone to the next one. So here's what we're going to be asking for. I'm putting this right up front because I want everyone to keep this in mind as you watch the slides and get the information that I'm going to present. We're asking as an admin team that we make taking MCAS, not passing MCAS, but taking MCAS part of our graduation requirement. Let's go on to the next one.
And just FYI, we're not voting tonight.
We're not voting tonight, yes, yes.
Today, we'll be debating again at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I do have a summary slide handout for everyone to take with you, and I'm happy to answer questions as we go through. The second thing that you'll need to do is approve a new competency determination. This is all going to become a little bit clearer as I go through some of the other slides, but there are 2 things. There's graduation requirement and there's competency determination. So just keep those 2 things in mind. Let's go on.
Because MCAS was the competency determination process. I'm just going to jump in.
I have a slide on that.
All right, I know. I'm just going to keep on.
You're
support you.
cutting ahead. Okay, so the first piece of information is MCAS did not go away. So some people, when they thought they were voting no on MCAS, thought MCAS was going away. It's not going away. And from all things that the Department of Education is putting out, they're not even changing or giving any suggestions or anything having to do with MCAS. It's the craziest information I've ever read, because I was expecting something, some acknowledgement, something, but nothing. So currently, grades 3 through 8 and grade 10 will take MCAS exams in math and ELA, and then also there's a science requirement in grades 5, 8, or 9, or 10. So the current testing schedule, and I know this is small, is up here. And essentially what we give for assessments is MCAS and all the grades that we just talked about. And we also give a PSAT in grade 8, 9, and 10. The school pays for the PSAT. If we go on to the next slide, I'll tell you why we do that. So we give the PSAT because we are a college preparatory school, and SATs are starting to come back into college admission process. They went away in 2020 because of COVID, and slowly some of them are coming back in. It's really the only experience our students have with timed tests, and we wanted to make sure students had that experience before they left high school. And it also gives a report to families. It's a nationally normed test. So families can get a report, they can see PSAT scores for 3 years, and they can have a sense of where their student kind of stacks up compared to the nation, compared to the state, and compared to our district. And it's really one of the few scores that we have that allows families to get a sense of where their student is on this type of measure. So we currently do use MCAS scores, and we use them in 3 ways. One, all the state frameworks that are put out by Massachusetts are measured by the MCAS in these 3 content areas, ELA, math, and science. And so we take those scores, and I come to you every year and I give reports, kind of the general big picture report on how we did on MCAS. But then behind the scenes, we do a lot more with that information to really look at how we are lining up with the state frameworks. We also use it to determine support paths for students that are on IEPs. So we'll continue on, and I'll tell you, we have a very high percentage rate, and then we have a percent of students that don't pass, and we look closely at those scores to be able to help us determine not just the score, but help us determine what trajectory that student is on, should be on, might be on, as far as receiving a diploma, getting extra services, staying at Frontier for an extra year, staying until they're 22. And that score is a score that we've used year after year, so we know what that score means when we're looking at students' assessment. The third way that score is used is the state is going to continue to give out scholarships, John and Abigail Adams and Koflick scholarships, which is tuition, free tuition for Massachusetts state schools. So they're going to continue to use that score for with MCAS also. Okay, so these are the 3 ways. So for content alignment, we sit down with each department at each different grade level. They do this at the elementary school as well as the middle school and high school. We look at how students performed on particular questions. Did we teach the content, or was it just not taught? We decide then, did we teach the content in a timely manner? Do we want to change the order of the course, or does it make more sense to say, random question, and we're not going to change our lineup of course delivery, or well, would be kind of important to get that a little bit earlier in the math curriculum or ELA curriculum. And then we also look at the questions themselves to see how difficult the question was. Was there something about the wording of the question that made our students do really well on it, or something about the wording of the question that made our students kind of miss it? And we do that type of analysis. So the second way that we're using it is IEP teams are meeting annually, and they're using these MCAS scores to determine what the student is going to do for a pathway through Frontier. So we can pretty much tell by how far a student misses the MCAS mark, whether they're in pretty solid shape to continue on a diploma path, taking the courses and the graduation requirements, or whether we should start to think about another plan for the student. It's not just that score. We use a lot of other different information, but this score is a pretty consistent score that we can really use to help determine some pathways for students. Okay, so just to give you an idea of numbers, we had 7 students that were slated to take the February biology exam that had previously not passed the exam. They're not all students that attended our schools. In fact, what we're finding is at least half, sometimes a lot of times a little bit more than half of students came from different school districts and came in either with the MCAS that was not passing from their other school in 9th grade, or they came in 8th grade and only had 1 year of exposure to our curriculum and then weren't successful on the test. Same thing on ELA and math. A lot of times we have students that come in from other districts that haven't passed those tests previously, but they're still on our docket to take the MCAS and pass with us. So we have approximately a 97% pass rate of students on the MCAS, which is first attempt to take on the MCAS, which is a pretty high percent.
And those numbers are each, that's not different people, they could be.
It could be the same student,
They could be the
yeah.
same student in all three tests.
Yeah, in fact, I know of one of the students that.
It was a softball freshman.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the big distinguishing factor here. So there's a competency determination and there's graduation requirement. Graduation requirements are decided month after month in this room. So we have come to you in the past and we have added graduation requirements. For example, the last one that we added was the cultural competency determination, which requires students to take a 2.5 credit class, a cultural studies course, and we approved it in this room, and that's now part of our graduation requirements. That's what we're going to ask you to do with MCAS, but there's a lot more information to be had. Competency determination was historically determined by the state, and the state is using MCAS or used MCAS in order to have students meet that competency determination. So let's go on. I'll show you the difference now. So what did question 2 do? Question 2 eliminated MCAS as a competency determination. That's what question 2 did. It didn't eliminate the test, and it did not eliminate the ability of local school boards to use MCAS as a graduation requirement. Let's go on. So we cannot use it as a competency determination anymore. We in this room could not say, we like that MCAS prevented or had students graduate and we'd like to use it as a competency determination. We can't do that. The only thing that we can do is add it to the graduation requirements. I know I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but there's a big difference and it's kind of hard to soak up. So let's go on. So here's what we are proposing for our competency determination. So this is going to replace MCAS at Frontier as a competency determination, and you will have to vote on this. So we are using English 10, geometry, which is typically a sophomore class, and biology, which is typically a freshman or a sophomore class, and is currently our tested subject, and US history, which is currently a sophomore class. Those are also graduation requirements, but we are asking that they become our competency determination. We're not doing 12th grade because we need opportunities for students to pass these classes before they get to 12th grade. The same way that right now MCAS, they get more than one chance to pass the MCAS before they get out. We need to give students years in order to pass these courses in order to get the competency determination. Questions on that point? Okay, let's go ahead on. Okay, so how many, well, I won't ask that question, but Mass Core is something that got put out for the Department of Education many years ago. And it is a suggested pathway through the coursework in Massachusetts. There's suggested courses that the state has put out that says these courses, if you take all these courses, then you can get into a college. And so most schools in Massachusetts adopted Mass Core in one form or another, and we get reports on what percent of our students met the Mass Core in any graduating year. We have a pretty high percentage because, next slide, our graduation requirements actually exceed Mass Core in many areas. So ELA and math, the state requires 4 courses each. By the time that our students get out of math in this school, they've typically taken at least 5 math courses, if not 6 or 7 math courses. ELA 4, Social studies and science, the state recommends 3 each, we require 4 each. So you can see we're just a little bit, requiring just a little bit more than what the state is requiring. In some of our other classes,
I just want to pause there only because I
yeah,
do want to think that thinking this group made this decision a few years ago to go higher than Mass Core and to basically have graduation requirements that not only gets you into a state college, but also gets you into a private college. And so that's the idea, is that we want those doors to be available, be open to graduates. And so I really want to emphasize that because a lot of schools are not set up this way. We see this a lot when students transfer in their junior or senior year. They have nowhere, I don't want to say nowhere near their credits. They are very short credits, and there's a lot of makeup kind of having to do. So I'm just kind of mentioning it out loud because it is something that shows that our high standards as a district.
and so these are some of the other,
Sorry.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Quick question on this one. How does the proposed competency determination align with the graduation requirements?
So the competency determination that we're proposing are essentially graduation requirements. However, I'm trying to think if there's any one that you could, no. You would have to take all of those classes in order to graduate from Frontier. So it's a little bit of a crossover.
But it's about the same.
It's about the same, yeah, exactly.
And do you know, if we look at how many folks didn't pass the MCAS on the first try, do you know how many folks in the school would have not passed those courses? Like
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. We've been looking really hard at that. And so they do line up. They do line up. So students that are not passing the MCAS on the first try are a little bit behind in their coursework. I'm not going to say they'll never pass because they're going to have accommodations and they may take the class again, or they may delay a year because they take an extra math class beforehand. But as far as on-time piece, there is a degree of alignment between that and the population that we're looking at that has multiple tries on MCAS. They're having trouble getting through these courses as well. But is the 4 courses, are those going to be a real barrier for students getting a diploma? I don't think so. It's not going to be the barrier that MCAS has met.
And they already are the requirement to graduate.
Right.
And so, you know, that's the difference is also that the accommodations can be made in those courses. You know, a student has a learning disability and so forth, and they're taking English 10. You know, they get accommodations toward that they may not had on MCAS, where MCAS put out that was not successful.
Right. And so this is, we have 3 slides on the lineup. So here are some more on the right-hand side is what the state's requiring. And you can see our list goes down more because we have the cultural studies requirement. We have health requirements that the state doesn't have. We have, and then the arts kind of line up. Next one. We also have the PACE class because we wanted to make sure that we socially normed that class. It's hugely popular, so we're successful in that. And so then here's what we're proposing. We're proposing that we add an MCAS score in ELA and math as a requirement, and not a passing score, it should say an MCAS score in biology. Sorry, I'm gonna have to say that, do that over. Or actually, it would be a passing score. So what does this mean for students who don't pass, that are on a diploma track? We are interested in minimizing how much testing we're doing with students that are not passing this assessment. We also think that MCAS retests are eventually going to go away in the state. And so we wanted to be prepared for something different for students that aren't passing, that we feel are on a diploma track and should be getting a diploma from Frontier. So let's go ahead to the next one. It does say it here, but so here are the reasons that we're proposing keeping MCAS, which we've already gone over. We use the scores to look at our courses. We use it for IUPs, and then we use it for scholarships. And then I think it's the next slide that has a comparison of testing. Okay, so here's what happens if they don't pass the MCAS. So we're proposing that for ELA and math, if they do not have a passing score on MCAS, they have to take it to graduate, but if they don't pass it, then instead of retaking the MCAS, we would have them a PSAT or an active placer score that would have a cutoff, and they could fulfill the requirement that way. Or if they don't get the cutoff score for one of those assessments, which they're already taking anyway, then we would have them take the NWEA. And the NWEA bar would be set at a rate that would be consistent with our belief that these students should graduate. In other words, it is a lower bar than what the current MCAS is as far as retest. For biology, for science, because there is no comparable test, we're proposing that students do, we have an Excel program, which is basically a biology review program, and proposing that with support, students would do 2 or 3 units in that, so they would get a healthy review of biology. But once they completed those units, that would satisfy their MCAS requirement or their testing requirement, yeah.
I think it was asked, this question was kind of asked, but we made it a different way. And it's probably so rare when it happens, but if someone were, if a student were to pass the course, say
Yeah.
biology, but then not pass the test, and then it goes into the PSAT, and then not pass that, and then not pass NEWA, I mean, we're probably talking it's so rare that this would happen. Would they just not graduate, or would they not, or would they be allowed to, I mean, because they've passed the course?
So that'd be true. It's a really good question because it's a really good distinction to make. So the courses are the competency determination. And right now, a student could pass all their MCAS exams and not graduate because they didn't meet our graduation requirements. They didn't pass government. So government is one of our graduation requirements. So they would pass the competency determination, i.e. those 4 courses, and still not be able to graduate because they haven't met a graduation requirement. One of the graduation requirements is now going to be passing one of these tests. And what we're saying is that we are going to set the bar on these tests so that students that are able to reasonably meet our graduation requirements, this should not be the thing that holds them up, if that's clear.
I think I know this answer, but how many people haven't graduated from Frontier in the last 10 years because of MCAS?
One. And that was a student last year because of science, and we're gonna get her back here so she can graduate.
Good.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to understand that the student profile of the student that is, let's say you did do well in the MCAS. The following year, junior year, you're gonna take the PSATs. The bar on that is not the PSAT score to get into a 4-year college. Okay, we're gonna, I don't know, Sarah can explain how they're gonna set it up, but there's a qualifying mark there as far, it's gonna be lower than the qualifying score to get into college. Or the active placer, which is your assessment placement exam to get into GCC. So again, these are all useful tools that they're already going to be doing and that they're already doing. But those students who have failed MCAS, if by their senior year are still unable to get to this point, we are definitely doing a lot of intervention with them. And there's probably other outside factors affecting, and that's what Sarah was talking about earlier, what is their graduation diploma plan? Are they students that are here in a 4-year track? Are they here for more years due to their IEP and other services that they need? You know what I mean? So that's one of the important parts of having an assessment is that it's not just checking boxes to get through coursework, but that we are looking at assessment of third parties, third-party assessment to examine along the way so that students aren't just pushed through and at the end, that kind of thing. So that's part of the
So Sarah, my first thought was, but you're still testing them, why are you still testing them? But you're telling me that they take these tests anyway.
Right, yeah, we're not adding any tests, we are subtracting tests, because if you go on to the next slide, so this is currently what happens with a student who starts to fail MCAS. They get a second attempt at biology, they get a third attempt at biology, and then we can file an appeal. Same thing with ELA and math. You take it 3 times. Actually, science is a little bit less because they don't offer it as much. And so we're proposing eliminating all of these retest situations. We're going to use tests that we are already administering in order to determine, to get over that bar of the assessment, if that makes sense. All right, so let's go ahead on. So this is the summary, and I did make a photocopy of this slide to pass around because it is a lot of information, and it is confusing when you start to think about competency determination versus graduation requirements. But essentially, we're spending 5 days giving this assessment to grade 10 students, and that's a lot of time invested, and we want to get information from that assessment if we're going to be spending that time testing. So we need students to take it seriously. So this is a way to have students, the 97% of students who are already taking the test and already passing, it's a way to continue to have them have some buy-in to this test so that we can use it to look at our curriculum, our resources, so we can use it as a comparative tool for our students that are maybe going to be on a graduation diploma path or maybe not. And so the middle part is what we're proposing, which is our competency determination and hanging on to MCAS for graduation, and then some of the other details at the end. But overall, it will reduce testing for students who are not passing, and we think it's going to be more in line with what we believe a diploma should be here at Frontier. We're not going to have to torture students that we really want to have get a diploma, but are just a disaster at standardized assessments.
I'll throw you a question. What if the state gets rid of MCAS? They're not talking about it right now, but they are talking about what do we do with this?
With this information, if the
What
whole
will we
thing,
do if they give it back?
if the whole thing goes away, yeah,
We'll be back.
I will be shocked. First of all, I would probably be retired by then. But anyway, somebody else will be giving you that presentation.
But it will take, I was just trying to say, we are going to be administering MCAS for 5 days a year
Yeah,
for the next few years.
Yeah,
The way
yeah.
it's being talked about right now.
yeah,
So that is a reality.
yeah, and
If there are big systematic changes to MCAS, then we'll be back here.
yeah. I mean, right now it's a federal mandate, and so that's why it's not going away anytime soon, because the rest of the country is giving these assessments at least 3 through 8. There are more and more states that are eliminating them as graduation requirements, so that is starting to come down the pipe. Questions? Yeah.
I have to clarify this one. So the first bullet point under proposal is require students to take but not pass the MCAS?
Correct.
But I thought on the previous slides is that they do have to pass the MCAS.
Yeah, so I did put the word pass in there, and I might need to take that word out because it really is take the MCAS. Now, if students decide to fill in C all the way down the page, then there's not much we can do about that because technically they will have taken the MCAS, but they will have to meet a bar on the PSAT or AccuPlacer. It just makes their life more difficult. And so I think the average student is going to take it seriously. I think the average student, 70% of them would take it seriously anyway. And you're really talking about a very small percent that would.
Oh, I was just thinking if we're gonna say to students that they just have to take it and they don't have to pass it. Letting them, being very clear that then you have to do all of these things afterwards
Exactly.
so that they don't just.
Exactly, yeah. We want them, part of it is so that they do take it seriously. So the data means something. If we're gonna spend this time taking this assessment, then let's use the data to the best of our ability.
So technically, our goal would still be though that students pass the MCAS.
Yes, that is our goal, because that's their easiest route. That's our easiest route, is if they pass it. If they don't pass it, we still have to track, we still have to make sure that they've got the PSAT or the AccuPlacer score, And then we have to set up the NWEA, which that would be an additional assessment, the NWEA. That's something that they're only taking in 7th grade right now, and we have to have our 11th and 12th graders taking it. So it is much less of a hassle for them to just take it, do well enough on it to pass, and then call it a day. Yeah.
It strikes me that this is all happening within the systems that we already have in place.
Yes, yeah. And that's the goal, is not to add more burden to teachers, not add more burden to administrators, not add any more burden to students. You know, especially students that were in this cycle of having to prep and test and prep and test many, many times, and we'll be out of that game, which is gonna be good.
Is this common structure or program, whatever you want to call it, that other districts are trying to adopt?
I don't
Or is this
know.
something you
Yeah,
guys create all on your own?
we created on our own, but
The competency determination is very similar to what a lot of districts are starting to talk about, starting to propose, right? It's a very different kind of competency determination. It's not a third-party competency determination, so it's all kind of in-house. And that accountability was taken away in the sense of, in the decision of the question 2. So I think you're gonna see a lot of districts doing, that's kind of the model they presented that as the option of picking coursework, completion of coursework as the competency determination. The continued use of MCAS on that, I don't know, I think we might be a little bit ahead of people as well. You know, but it is, again, they're still taking the test. So everybody still has to take the test. So it's, you know, it really, it doesn't affect that same way, but there is a philosophy behind it as well, behind it, that we're still valuing the taking of that test to some level, I guess you could say. I guess we really break down to what we're asking us to do, folks.
and a vote will help, because I do have a few students. We have the February biology test that's coming up. We have a group of students that have to take it because they never took a biology assessment already, and so we're all set up with them. But then I have these 7 students that are waiting to hear, and if the board says this is what we're going to do, then those students, we pivot, and they'll start doing the IXL review for a couple of units, and they're done at the end of this year. So it will have an immediate impact on students in our school as far as testing.
But we're not gonna vote on it until
Not
next
voting
month,
tonight,
right?
yeah, you vote next
You just-
time, yeah.
But you can't start ahead of time with these kids. Until we pass it.
Right,
Yeah, time is-
Okay.
yeah.
What was our graduation requirement before? Was it taking or passing the MCAS?
It didn't have anything to do with MCAS, because the competency determination was taken care of by the state, and that was only MCAS. So graduation requirements had nothing to do with MCAS,
Oh,
but getting a diploma, in order to get a diploma, you had to have the competency determination and the graduation requirements. And we're still saying it's an and, but now we've moved the MCAS from the competency determination column into the graduation column. And so that's why we're able to say take it versus pass it. We could say pass it, but I think that will put us back in a situation where we're having kids test and test, and especially if the retests start to go away, which I think they're gonna try to start saving money, I'm guessing, but that would be my guess, is that they're not gonna have those much anymore.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Right. Getting close to the end. We are,
Can I make a comment on that before we move on? I really like using coursework as part of the competency determination. We have an outstanding faculty here. I trust that they are accurately assessing our students, meeting Massachusetts frameworks. I'm uncomfortable with this reliance on standardized testing as part of the competency determination, because I think it's really not inclusive of the neurodiversity we have in our student population. It sounds like it has not been an issue in recent history, but we very much could have students with major testing anxiety, who might otherwise stay home and not take MCAS, and like, why are our teachers' formative and summative assessments not giving us enough information about their competency? Why do we need the standardized testing to tell us that? I'm uncomfortable with making that a graduation requirement. Because I don't think it's in line with our equity goals, inclusion and anti-ableism.
So we're not, and I think you're talking about graduation requirements.
Competency determination being a requirement to receive the diploma.
Right, and those are the courses, those would be the 4 courses. And the MCAS would move over to graduation requirement. And so they have to take the test, not necessarily pass the test. So right now, middle school is required by the state that students take MCAS. Typically, we might have 1 student opt out a year, and that's it. And usually not any, but if there's going to be a student that opts out, it would be 1. So based on that, I'm not anticipating this would be a big bar for 10th grade either.
It hasn't been, but it could be in the future. I'm concerned about inclusion of all neurotypes and abilities, including kids who, are just, because they've got anxiety or whatever, are terrible testers, they can still be on college track.
Yes, and if they are, I think this plan is going to help them, because we are essentially having students take it, but not necessarily pass it, if that makes sense. And we have very, very, very few students that are on a college track that we haven't historically been able to even get past MCAS. It just takes more time, and that's what we'd like to eliminate, is the amount of times they're having to take that assessment. If that makes sense.
Well, also just to clarify, the way I understand it, the way you presented it, regardless of how we vote on this next month, we're still going to be taking MCAS for the next unforeseen future.
Right.
Yeah.
It is still required by federally to take a standardized test. So standardized testing isn't going away.
I get that.
Okay.
But I feel like this could be used to punish kids who are bad at testing for very valid reasons related to how their brains work that they can't change. And I trust our teachers are assessing that.
But aren't those students, those same students are, in our district and taking the test as 3rd grade, and we're supporting them through that challenge for them. And if they have test anxiety, there's accommodations to testing where they can take it in small groups, and we're teaching them, because I think what you're going to do is put barriers in those places for those students if you don't try to address either a disability that causes that level of anxiety or just their approach, because the following year the PSAT will be provided. Now they get to opt out of the PSAT, then they can opt out of the SAT. Then are they going to opt out of the AccuPlacer to get placement in a community college or 2 or 4 year college? So these kind of assessments do come up in their lives, and I think it's our job as a district to provide opportunities that are safe and secure for students who have anxiety. And if it's so far that they can't do that, then we work in an education plan to make it a safe environment to attempt the test. And it's no longer a sit down, you're going to take this test, and if you fail, you're not going to graduate. It's not that we've taken a lot of the voters have taken a lot of the weight off of that test. And so we're still providing that test, and so we're still going to provide those accommodations and supports and help the students do their best in that kind of activity. And I don't think removing it, we're saying it's not useful. I don't know, I think standardized tests are still part of our greater community, still part of education. And we should do our best to do, I think it's a very humane approach that gets students through by still using it.
I agree. Let's do our best. Let's provide accommodations. There may be kids for whom we can't find accommodation of accommodations that does help them get the scores that we're now saying are required to graduate. I'm concerned with the kids.
If the student had an accommodation where the amount of anxiety is they can't sit for a test in 10th grade, we would sit down and then we would say, we'll take the 0 on the test and we will move forward through perhaps the AccuPlacer, which is an online test that's very easy, a one-time sitting. You know what I mean? There are other ways around that. This isn't an inhumane policy. We take these policies and then it gets translated down. I think I just don't see. I don't see in application a student in a large hall. I mean, if they're understand, we want to be able to prepare them. Right now, if you want to take the SAT, you go to DA and you sit in their gym in the oldest 1950 style testing way it works. You're going to go to the most local place. You know what I mean? And if that is something that we've got to, be preparing, putting opportunities where there is standardized testing, is still a major thing, and you can go around it, and you can go around it even within this policy because you don't have to pass the test. So we disagree, but I'm debating the other side.
You feel like it's not inhumane, but that might not be the student's perspective.
What's that?
You feel like this process is not inhumane. You said that several times, but that might not be how the student experiences it. That's what I'm saying. We should still give them a diploma if their teachers think that they have met the Massachusetts frameworks from assessing in other ways that are more student-centered than standardized testing, which does in no way resemble anything that adults do in real life.
I would disagree. When you go to get your license, and I just took one of my kids through that, it was one of the most stressful moments of their life, taking the test to get their permit, and then having to take a driving exam. Shaking with anxiety, right? But we need to provide supportive opportunities in life because it does come up in life. If you want to go into certain professions that have competency, from medical to law to other things, perhaps it's not going to be for this particular type of student, but I think as a general, we provide those opportunities in a safe environment.
I was going to echo the same thing with Darius. We have to prepare kids for when they leave here, and they're going to hit tests in every job application. If they're on a student's college track, they want to go into different professions, there are tests that are going to we have to prepare them for. This is just one way.
My concern about it is, I just myself. If you tell me when I was always a great standardized tester. If you tell me all of a sudden I have to take it, but it doesn't matter how well I do on it, and the taking of it is an unpleasant experience. To try hard and to do your best is an unpleasant experience. I am going to avoid that unpleasant experience by not trying. And so by keeping it, it's the vast, and especially the kids that have already taken, ninth grade, they've already taken PSATs. They already have an idea how good of a standardized tester they are. Why try? How good is your data going to be? Just from myself, I wouldn't try. But you did it. I did because, back then we didn't have these types of things. These weren't requirements. But I don't understand how you still have a sense of the data being reliable or useful for decision-making processes, especially part of I always thought the most valuable parts of one of the real valuable parts of the data is to ascertain what parts of the curriculum and what parts of the instruction and which instructors could use some tweaking. And how is this now going to be, how are you going to have confidence in the data that you're going to get that, to make personnel decisions based on it?
But most of the students are still taking it. We still have that data.
Right, but now they're told, right now, prior to the vote, they were told, you have to do your best. Now they're told, just sit down and take it. That's a huge difference to me.
I'm not sure that most students don't try their hardest at it. I think think they're still gonna try hard, they just wanna do well, everybody wants to do well.
It doesn't matter if you do well or not, and doing well is unpleasant.
Get the scholarship.
Taking standardized tests is apparently unpleasant, I don't disagree.
Sounds like we will have more time to
We're just gonna
discuss
discuss it
this,
next time, yeah.
next week. Next month, sorry.
It would have been nice if this had been sent out in advance, so we could have thought about it before being on the spot tonight.
Yeah. And is this the final presentation that's gonna be brought forward? Next.
I can also send everybody
That
this.
would be fantastic. Yeah, thank you. And I suspect if anybody needs any clarification on any of the points that are in there, they can send it out. We can update that as we go next month. All right. Any other comments or questions tonight? We cut this short, but we're so close. We've got a few things here. I just wanted to give a brief report that we do have a contracted employee who wishes to discuss changes in their contract. There will be a committee set up, and I'm going to appoint myself to that committee to deal with that. And it will be brought back to the committee to discuss formally once that's been done. Just for clarification on that, I think as public knowledge. Any reports from the collaborative?
We had a meeting, most of it was about financial bearings. They had a situation with some financial impropriety happening, and that case was settled. And they're continuing to offer districts professional development. It was mostly about their financial standings.
You had a pretty copy of it. The other thing I would say, Sasha Mile, student received the award this evening. Is that? Yeah, she did. So I'll put it on February because there's no need for me to go through, talk about how great she is without her folks here to witness that. So that can be delayed. Sherry did receive it formally in December at the banquet. So it was really just to share it all.
And now we're going to go into executive discussion.
We're going to do an executive session, and it will not be returning to regular business.
Correct. So we need a motion to
So moved.
end the session, head into executive session.
You're going to end the session, just going to go to executive.
All right. The purpose is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining.
We're just giving an update on Frontier's work. It'll be pretty.
Do we keep it, George?
Am I staying?
Yeah, you can say.
Okay.
Oh, it's your turn.
Good night, Sarah.
I think,
Thank you.
Bob, you've got a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All right. Jessica?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Olivia?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
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 He does.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording.